Welcome to Dream Big, creating a better world for yourself and the planet. Today I have an amazing yogi who has come from the glitz world of New York, went to the Himalayas, lived there with the monks, come back to the Western world to bring wisdom about nutrition, wisdom about meditation and consciousness to us here. He has his name is Simone, and he worked, when he was 20, he was given a bunch of millions of dollars to start a glitz magazine on bringing fashion to the world, in English, British magazine, to bring the upper class together with the working class dress code together and mix the two into a casual glitz wear. And he was working with the secretary to his left and right, super busy, 24/7. And after 4 years of this, he's smiling on the other end. He said, "Thank you. I need to go to find my soul." And he dedicated himself to finding his inner presence for 2 years, going to the Himalayas, living a yogic life, and has come back then with that certainty in himself, that accomplishment, and now has dedicated himself to meditation, coaching, and nutrition. And he's been, just last week, he was in the Museum of Modern Arts being invited to guide meditations there for 400 people. A couple of months ago, you were in Aspen for the American Express Platinum Club, where you were doing guided meditations there. So you obviously, and everybody's going to now look, is he coming in a suit, or what is he going to look like? I'm welcoming you. Can you give yourself an introduction and tell all the things I happen to not have mentioned? Thank you, Sa.
Oh, thank you so much, my love. It is such an honor and pleasure to be here with you. Yeah, it's a very interesting moment. I remember very clearly November 22nd, 2012 is when I actually took that leap of courage to walk into my business partner's office and say, "Buy me out. I need to leave. I need to go deep and really discover what's this void that I'm carrying. What is this overarching theme of guilt and shame with everything that I do, when in the outside things really looked picture perfect, had the big apartment, hanging out with celebrities, had the big job and 50 employees, and all the things are looking in this beautiful way. But inside it was major chaos. It was this internal chaos was coming out. So I wasn't a leader who was inspiring with love. I was inspiring people with fear, with shame, with guilt. So the need to change was, it had my genetic predisposition to have addiction with alcohol and drugs and sex and all these, you name it, had became a really, it's bubbled up in such a powerful way that I actually lost myself in so many ways. So when that happened, I walked into my business partner's office and I left. And I'm just trying to trace this back. I mean, I feel like I've told this story a few times this past week. And the most important part was when I arrived in India, 3 days after, I went into a 10-day silent retreat. And
when you arrived in India, you said?
Yes.
So you said, "Buy me out, and that's it, and I'm leaving." That decision must have been incredible.
Yes, it was really, to say the very least. Well, so there's a little piece of information there that I ended up not sharing a lot with some people, which is the fact that a lot of this discovery happened when I went to Berlin. And in Berlin, when I left, I was like, okay, I'm going to go visit the one person I knew to have the answers. Her name is Tiffany. And I went to see her in Switzerland, in Zurich. And she, after a few days of there, she's like, let's go meet some people. So we go to Berlin and we're sitting at her friend's apartment. And it was during this breakfast that she actually was like, "I gotta leave. I have to go back to Zurich for work." And I was like, "Whoa, you're gonna leave me here with all your friends? I don't know these people." And these people were talking about meeting their teachers and swimming in a sacred river and drinking entheogenic medicine and fundraising for Nepal and living in ashrams and monasteries and being of benefit to all beings. matching their intention, speech, and actions in ways that they could be of benefit to all beings. I had never heard that vocabulary before. Up until that day, I had been spending $250,000 every 3 months to print a magazine that was reaching people. It was speaking about cool topics and getting people to think of ways to express themselves in a different way, which was very valuable. But the reality was we were selling something to people who already had everything.
Yeah.
Who in reality, they were just, filling the void with more stuff. And I was at the head of that. So when I heard that conversation in Berlin, I came back to the States and I started to feel completely out of sorts with all the things. That's when I reached this existential paralysis. I was like, oh my God, nothing makes sense. What's going on? Why? All these things started to happen. And then me and my brother started to write about spirituality. We started to write about sustainability. We started to write about nutrition. We started to write about plant-based nutrition. We started to write about the yogic lifestyle through an intellectual lens.
In your magazine?
The magazine had ended. So we started a blog. We started a blog.
Okay.
The magazine, they printed, I think, one more copy after I left. Yeah. And then it became online only.
Okay.
And the editorial director is now the editor-in-chief of Interview Magazine, which is a massive magazine. The photo director is now at V Magazine. The art director is at the New Museum. So my whole creative team they've taken these high-level executive roles, still in media. And they've looked at me as like, okay, he's gone crazy. He's lost his shit. What is he talking about? Feel good, do good. What does that even mean? And I was totally still having that idea. So I left New York completely. So I'm going to give you the timeline. So I left the magazine, went to Switzerland, went to Berlin, came back to New York, got rid of all my stuff, went to Florida. In Florida is when I started to write about all this stuff under this blog called Oracle Talk. Oracle Talk within 6 months had 4.2 million unique visitors, which was another huge thing that happened. And then another check came in.
Wait a second. You started a blog and you got 2 million visitors?
4.2 million unique visitors.
4.2 million visitors.
Yes.
Let me ask you, Sa, whatever you touch, whatever you do, it seems to me like turns to gold. And you look the part of not needing recognition. You look the part of like going, I'm so comfortable in my own skin. How did you get there? Did you always have that self-confidence? Did you always have that, I am awesome, I'm loved, or whatever it takes?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was, growing up in Brazil around people who never accepted me for who I really was.
Right.
And moving to Florida to an extremely contrived society in Tampa, and going to high school where everyone's white and all the kids drive an Escalade at 16 years old, and having that as my upbringing, it was bottled me down in such a way, created such trauma. But through the process of getting to know myself better and better and better, and the more I started to express myself, I actually became the person that I really wanted to be. I really noticed that the closer that I could be, that I could express myself, the more I could actually be this confident, creative, funny person.
So at what age did that happen? How did you learn, or when did you practice this getting to know yourself more and becoming?
At 19 is when I left Florida and I moved to LA. And in LA is when I was dyeing my hair pink and wearing contacts and wearing makeup and, just expressing myself. Yeah, completely outrageous. And, but I wasn't fully, I realized that there was something that was there that I could bring to people.
Mm-hmm. A persona, a form,
the
a
real,
shape.
fully confident. This really happened in this last 4 to 5 years when I started to meditate, and I started to understand that the only thing that really mattered to me, the only thing that got me excited about living was to be of benefit to all beings everywhere. And how could I do that? How could I use my charisma and my humor
Yeah.
to bring people together, to make people laugh, and to get people to treat each other and oneself better? How do we create more harmony with ourselves and the world? And I think it's how you opened. And I think this is what this whole thing is about.
Yes.
Uh, and I think confidence in all of this things come from when you learn to feel good. And I'm very practical about my means. It's like, how do I feel good today? What's
Mm-hmm.
one thing I'm willing to, this is what I do with my clients. Like, what's one thing are you willing to commit to this week? What's one thing that you know will energize you for this week that you can do?
Yes.
And then people start to do the one thing. For some people, it's drinking more water. For some people, it's sleeping an extra hour. For some people, it's meditating, breathing, eating right, having the correct association, exercising. Some people are ready for all those things. Some people are only ready to have to meditate for 2 minutes a day. Some people are only ready to, say, I forgive myself. It's just whatever we're at. It's about meeting where they're at, but making that small commitment, one practical thing you can do today to feel better today.
Okay, cool. So that is awesome. Take us to India. Take us into the ashrams. You were in the ashrams. You were studied with the Dalai Lama, with Tenzin Rinpoche, Lama, Zopa Rinpoche,
Yes,
Gyatso,
yes,
Krishnadas, Pem, a
yes,
lot of those names. And
yes.
you happen to manifest all these amazing meetings with them, and you sat with them, you sat with people and meditated. You learned discovering yourself. Tell me about that inner process. What did it look like? What did you
Woo!
discover? Yes.
I discovered that it was very loud in here, that was very noisy, that I had been carrying agreements of guilt and shame with me over everything I did. I
Mm.
never felt worthy. I never felt like I was worthy of anything that I did. Sometimes I would look at myself at the magazine and be like, who did that? Like, things wouldn't integrate.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember after that very first 10-day retreat, and after I went in for the 30-day silent retreat with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and that's when things started to really click. I had enough space in me to hear the noise, to see the noise, to be able to look at how much of this noise had been cooked into me through my genetic predisposition, through my society, through my family, through my friends, and how a lot of this had actually been the overarching theme of my life, and how I had been operating through these lenses, and
Mm-hmm.
how the priority of my nervous systems have been so survival driven, so manic, so egotistic, so fearful.
Mm.
And the underlying theme is a lot of guilt and shame
Yeah.
that really was cooked into my family tree, cooked into my mom and my dad, and a lot of it had to do with my grandmother that committed suicide.
Oh.
And so during those times, I was actually able to look at all the shit that I had done
Mm.
ahead of me, and being able to actually reframe the traumas that I had caused myself and caused others, and change the relationship I had with these obstacles, and made a commitment, to a vow to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, to take a year of living in this way, where it all mattered, where my thoughts, my speech, and my action, it all mattered. These three aspects of my life mattered.
Mm.
In such a way, it took such personal responsibility for my life that at that point, I started to see that it was all possible. That manifesting these miracles, that living a life of miracles, that being of benefit to all beings had a resonance in such a high way that you were actually able to walk into a room and change people's energy and turn heads, but not because you looked physiologically beautiful, because you had this strong vagal tone, because you were radiating this sun from inside out.
Yes.
Simply by tuning in and by noticing that what we carry in our minds, how we speak to each other and to ourselves, and how we act, it's the doings that lead to the being, right?
Mm.
So it was a lot of time, and a lot of it changed a lot, right? So I had never traveled and slept on the floor, or eaten with my hands, or worn the same clothes for weeks at a time, or walked barefoot. And I remember being sick over and over again in the Himalayas, and not having anyone to take care of me, and working through that alone was such a huge thing. I had such dependency on people.
Uh-huh.
I never understood what it was, what the Buddha said, to one is one's own refuge.
Okay.
What that means to be your own refuge, what it means to be your own guru, what that meant. I never understood what that meant. I was always so dependent on other people to show up for work and to create something. And the moment I understood personal responsibility and the discipline of self-worship, the power that there is about being the best version of yourself,
Yeah.
it all changed. So I started to have these openings. I started to have these massive openings. And when I had these openings was when things started to have room for, I understood that miracles are natural. I understood that there's real potential to live the best life and to manifest people like you in my life, just walking down the street in Bali and being able to lock eyes with you. And then here we are years later, and you know, following your journey, continue to be inspired. And oh my God.
Wow. Oh, I remember that moment. I mean, I drove down on my electric motorbike downtown Ubud, Hanuman. You're sitting there in that restaurant outdoors, and I drive and I see you and you look, and your eyes are so alive. You look out of your eyes more than anybody. And, you know, Ubud is full of people like that, you know, and it's like whoosh. And I said, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to talk to that person. I'm going to ask who they are, what they've done, where they come from. You know, and I'm sharing that just to encourage anyone who's listening to, or all of you who are listening, you know, when you're curious, follow your heart. Who knows where it takes you? And, you know, we sat in the middle of this crowded world, cars going by, motorcycles going by, people ordering food. And you and I said, let's meditate. And we looked into each other's eyes and we locked on and we closed our eyes, and you went into this inner expanse. And naturally, you and I both have trained. But so for anybody who wants to have a carrot to why it's useful to train in meditation, you get to see worlds that are out of this world. And I want to share some of that insight in our second conversation, which we still have 8 minutes to talk here, but in our second conversation, I want to share about what is soul, where do you go, what are levels of consciousness, what do you experience in that stillness, how can you turn things around, what techniques can you learn, use to talk with those demons, so to speak, and then what vistas open up, because very few people describe the inner worlds to other people. It's like, hush, hush, well, let's not talk about it. We'll just mention that there is soul somewhere, you know, and it's like, where and how and all that. So I want to, are you up for that? Yes?
Yeah, I think we can dive in. I think we can talk about it.
Okay. So maybe to get started, you can share for all these people who are listening for the first portion, which is free for all, and give us some ideas about, you know, you come from also the nutritional background. What are things that we can do on a physical level to prepare ourselves? Because that's really what I wanted to hear from you is also is like, how do we prepare our body to be a vessel that, and I love what you say, action, thought, speech, and action. And I want to go into more of that in the second part. It is so fundamentally important. So let's just go into nutrition. Tell us nutshell nuggets that you have gathered with all these years now of being involved in raw food and nutrition, and you've been in these amazing places, Omega Institute, and in all over the place. So tell us.
Okay, so I think the basic understanding for a healthy, happy, strong, sharp, and balanced mind, it starts in the gut. So having the understanding that a strong, healthy gut is a way to lower inflammation in the body. Lower inflammation in the body lowers inflammatory processes in the mind. There's 5 main allergens that we've collected that my teacher, Joshua Rosenthal, has collected along the years. It shows that the states in America that have the highest consumption of eggs, dairy, gluten, sugar, and corn have shown to have the highest rates of anxiety and depression. And most so, even the states that have the highest consumption of sugar and dairy. These are some of the most inflammatory elements for the gut. The gut being, if you look at the autonomic nervous system, there's 3 parts, right? The sympathetic, parasympathetic, the enteric. The enteric nervous system being the gut, the microbiome gut. And when you understand that, yes, love?
So let's hear that again. Sympathetic, parasympathetic, and you're saying the gut is its own nervous system. I think that'll be news.
Enteric.
Yeah, the
Enteric,
enteric
yes.
system. It's like, that's going to
ENS,
be
yeah.
news for people. Tell me about that.
Yes, exactly. And it's very news because when Harvard itself started to do research about this, was a paradigm shift for people.
Mm.
And some neuroscientists actually want to take the ENS, the enteric nervous system, to put give its own division within the nervous system, not to just be part of the autonomic nervous system, which is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And when you look at the research, the gut, the brain below, which is the gut, sends 10 times more messages to the brain above than the brain above to the brain below. So if the brain below, which is the gut, is unhealthy, the brain above is clearly going to be unhealthy.
Yep.
And that was a massive shift for, I think, a lot for myself and for all my clients. When we take out some of these things, and when you look at these 5 main allergens, right? It's not about going and taking them all out. It's first start with processed foods, and then notice where gluten is coming in, where corn is coming in, and most important of them all is sugar. What is your sugar consumption? Noticing the cravings that you have around these 5 main foods, noticing the quality of your mind around sugar, noticing the quality of your mind in that space of craving, because you notice that there's probably a neurochemical imbalance. And we can change that by simply eating in a way that's highly nutritional. So what I really recommend is to eat a diet, a plant-based diet of at least 70% of your diet to be plant-based. And those 30% to follow what the blue zones, right? The 4 main areas in the world that eat that live out their biological clock. And what they eat is...
They live to be 120, right?
So 110, 120. They live out, and it's... if I'm not mistaken, it's Japan. There's an area in Japan, Costa Rica, an area outside of Morocco, I think, and then
Russia,
Greece, or
Greece.
Maybe Russia. Yeah,
I thought it was in the mountain. Well, whatever. Okay, got it. It's a zone where people have a certain type of food intake.
Exactly.
That allows them.
Blue zones. It's called the blue zones. There's 4 main areas in the world.
Okay.
And they eat this diet that's majority plant-based, although they still eat animal protein. But when they eat, they eat. When they talk, they talk. And a lot of the dinners are in community, and they're laughing, and they're breathing together, and they're meditating together, and they're exercising. These are some of the things that we forgot, that we exercise not for physiological benefits, for emotional, for mental benefits.
Yes.
But we've been trained in such a backwards way, The physiological container for the mind will allow itself to express in a beautiful, creative, expensive, flowing, forgiving way.
Yeah.
We just need to trace it back. And so the basic, the most profound thing I can tell anybody is to cut out sugar. And this is not fruit sugar. This is processed sugar. And the xylitol, maltitol, stevia bullshit, all that stuff does not count. All that stuff counts. This is all,
Yep.
This is all stuff that...
I know that when I eat stevia, sorry to say to everybody here, but when I take stevia in and it has a sweet effect, my brain goes foggy. I can see it. It's like, whoa, I wouldn't touch that stuff anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having that understanding, so what I always recommend is to look at the 5 main allergens and start with sugar, and then look at dairy, and then look at gluten. These 3 have been some of the most pivotal elements to changing my, because the way it all started for me, as soon as I hit these ground levels of understanding about myself and my body and the condition that I had, I hit suicidal depression. And it was through being at the bottom of the pit for so long and doing the research and doing these trainings and talking to some of these really influential people that I've been able to really notice that I was eating a lot of this shit. I was still gravitating towards a lot of that. And then you also know that the gut produces about 90 to 97% of the serotonin. And we look at serotonin as a neurochemical solely produced in the brain, but the reality is it's in the gut. So if the gut's inflamed, you're not going to produce one of the 4 main happy hormones that you need.
Exactly. And this is so true. I mean, I see people over and over again. I can almost tell by the smell of the body of the person whether they're lacking serotonin and therefore whether they're depressed or not. It's like amazing how the chemistry creates emotions, creates mindsets, and creates doors or non-doors. So yeah, I mean, we need to have the physical body in shape, and then talk about speech. Just real quickly, we're coming up on a couple more minutes here, but that's fine. I want to hear the
Sorry,
importance
you
of,
cut out for a second. What was
okay,
it?
the importance and purity of speech. Now we have the body, the purity of body, and we're going to maybe give a couple more tips on the second part here. But talk about the importance of speech. Clean
Speeches.
speech.
I mean, you look at the research that the molecular structure of the DNA has those four letters, and those four letters, the way they program itself is very similar to the vocabulary that we speak. So we look at the power of speech and the power of reprogramming of the mind, and we can change just by simply speaking kindly to ourselves and others. And it's not just, you can change your biology by having positive and grateful and compassionate thoughts. And you look at the neurochemicals involved in that, it is science can back all this up. It is such a beautiful thing. I think most important when it comes to speech is to find a way to be proactive and find a way to respond to life, not react to life. I think we're so quickly to react to everything and speak unkindly to people and to ourselves. And if we can find a way to, through the process of noticing, right, between the stimulus and response, at the very split second that it happens, taking a choice. I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to be compassionate. And then you just start to notice how your life changes. You start to notice how you start to receive all of this influx of miracles and abundance in every area of your life simply because you chose to speak kindly to one person. And then that becomes your vocabulary. And then, honey, oof. The door is just open in such a miraculous way. So speech, start with yourself. Start speaking kindly to yourself, and in that way, you'll be speaking kindly to other people. And one really powerful thing to do is to try to go 24 hours without judging yourself or others. One single 24 hours, and just see what happens.
Good. That's a good point to leave us with. Take small steps, take one choice, follow through with it. Do it for a week, do it first for a day, do it then for a week, or as often as you can catch yourself, make that choice again, stop, focus, refocus, and create a better world in the microcosm, and you will see changes in the macrocosm. I love that.
Yes. Doing that leads to being.
Yeah, so let's talk and continue to talk about the experiences you had in 30 days of silence, in the power of what you said. You re-scripted yourself. So I'd like to hear about that, because a lot of us say, yeah, well, I have traumas, and if I think about them, all I do is spin my wheels and repeat the trauma, and I don't know how to get out of it. So tell us, maybe we can discuss how people can get out of these loopholes and come into that split second of that awareness that's at the core source of who we really are, that makes the choice, and then move forward.
Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Sa, for being here, for being you, and for being actually so outrageously daring and just going for your dream. And I thank you.
Thank you for having me. This is such an honor. And thank you so much, my dear. I really appreciate this opportunity to share with your audience. And I hope we can inspire people to take personal responsibility for their lives in such a way that they decide that they want to feel good today, that they want to live with integrity and stop lying to themselves and the world.
Yes. And Sa, there is a way to connect with you, to get maybe a freebie. I haven't asked you yet before that, but it's up. Here's the button, one to the right or left. I can never tell from the way I'm sitting here watching. Click on it and connect with Sa, get his free download, and be sure to practice some of his techniques of go and pick one thing today that you can do today or this week that makes you feel good, that honors you, and that makes you conscious, and do 24 hours of speaking kindly to yourself, not judging.
Cool.
I'll see you for the second part. I'm super excited. All right.